Welcome back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
And I'm Luke.
Man, have we got just a jam-packed full episode for everybody this week.
Yes. This is I'm actually really excited. We're going to have a lot of stuff that we got questions to cover. We got papers to cover. We got all the stuff's happening around the yard.
Everything's happening. We're going to, in fact, we have so much to talk about. I think we're going to have a bonus episode coming up that we're going to record just after this.
Yeah.
Which look for that posting in between our normal postings, and we're going to talk about that more later in the episode here today. But first, let's talk about what we've been doing around the yard. Oh man, has it been busy?
It's been strange. This has been a strange spring, I think. Right?
I agree.
We always talk about weather, so we can't break that tradition. It's been cold at night. We had 50, 40, we had down to 47.
Memorial Day weekend was really nice. You could sit outside.
Yep.
It was 60 and 65 and sunny, but then in the evenings it was getting down to 50. You wanted to sit around a fire or have long sleeves on.
Yes. And the bees don't like that kind of weather.
I mean,
they don't love it.
They've been building strong. They've been building healthily.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
Sure.
All the spring, and then you sent me a note on Sunday that hardly anybody's flying.
Yeah, I walked the yard and there was.
Yes.
And actually, what had happened is that somebody came and bought a queen for me that day, and they walked out and they said, "For the number of hives you have, you sure don't have a lot of bees in the air."
I was thinking there might be something wrong with my hives.
Yeah. So I also so I told her, I said, I can go lift lids. You want me to go lift lids, and we can take a good quick look at what's going on. And she declined. She didn't have a bee suit on, but
that doesn't seem that odd.
No, but it was fine. It did have me worried, but I went and checked some bees, and they were just they're covering everything, right? They're keeping temperatures warm.
Cool, and then it was warm today. It was in close to 90, 85 and sunny, and everybody was out in force.
Yeah, and so the other thing is that flowers right now, we are into the clover season.
Yep.
I believe that I have heard in the past, I haven't looked it up, that clover doesn't produce unless it's above 80. We're not producing nectar or honey unless it's above 80.
Okay.
So today's the first day that's been above 80 for a week.
Yeah.
And clover is out, and it's been blooming.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen bees on it until today.
Agreed.
I have a whole backyard here in my house full of clover, and you could actually see the bee. If you squatted down, you could see them humming above it.
Yeah.
So I think realistically they're not coming out. There's not that much coming in as far as nectar was going until today, and now we've got clover flow. So everybody that thinks that they're on top of their hives should be getting ready for our summer flow. That should be kicking on.
I mean, I've already got three high on my honey supers on a hive, and I opted not to go into that one today because I really didn't want to have to hoist already full supers. I know you've extracted, which was another talking point here on the list.
Yeah.
So how many have you extracted?
I've extracted 120 pounds of my own, and then probably about another 40 pounds of other people's.
And 120 pounds comes off of three
supers. I pulled some deeps because I was getting real tight in some of my deeps. They were not moving up because they weren't drawn, and so I made them some space.
You've also been doing some regular beekeeping activities, including checking for queens and replacing. I guess you've been selling some queens to people.
Yeah, we've got the grafted queens. First of all, we had our grafting class, which I thought was really good. We got really good feedback from it, and some of those queens did not hatch well. Were just kind of duds.
Our take rate was about 50%, wasn't it?
Take rate was about 50%.
Some of us did well. Some students did really well. Some students did typical, and by typical I mean
struck out.
Zero.
We went 0 for 4 and 0 for 5 for a couple of them, and then one of them went 4 for 5.
And I think I was probably 6 or 7 for 10 or something like that.
Yep, and
it's about right for me.
I think I missed 2 for 6 or something. So I had 4 for 6 or something like that. My next, because I went back and regrafted.
Yep.
Like another 2 weeks after that, week or 2 weeks after that, and that one I went and did two things. One of them I had all brand new cups, and in my brand new cups I went 0 for 10, which is like the cups are like you graft into this little cup, and they had not been polished by the bees.
Yeah, so these are standard the Easy Beezy cell cups, and typically the recommendation is to put those in your cell builder and have them, so give them an opportunity to get polished, because even though they don't look like they've done anything to our eyeballs, apparently they do.
Yeah, I don't know what they do to it. But anyway, I went 0 for 10 on that one, and I went 9 for 10 on the next row.
Yep.
So it makes a difference. At least in my experience, it makes a difference. So
well, and that's what I was always told, was you got to have your cups prepped beforehand.
yeah.
Otherwise, they won't take, and your most recent experiment with that shows it's true. So, it also sounds like you've got some new help around the yard.
I do. I have. So last year was the first time I ever got help.
Yeah.
Right. And Ben probably doesn't
you
listen
look for
anymore.
help to come in, and yep.
Yeah. And actually, Kelly looked for help to come in. My wife said, "You need help in the yard," and I said, "Well, but I got you, Kelly," and she said, "Yeah, you need help in the yard." So I got voluntold to bring Ben in, and Ben was out of college and looking for a job and needed some references, and ended up working out pretty good, actually.
Did some intern work, yeah.
And so I've got a couple more. I've got another new high school intern. I'm interviewing an intern tomorrow. I've got a volunteer that I'm mentoring, although I don't know that she needs much mentoring, to be honest. She's pretty sharp. And then
she's new to beekeeping.
Yeah.
So still in the active learning portion of that.
That's true, right? But most beekeepers, even if you're new in beekeeping, as long as you have purposes for what you're doing, I think you're well on your way to being a pretty good beekeeper, right? Like, as long as you're not like, hey, I'm going to replace my queen. And you're like, why are you replacing your queen? Like, and here's my reasons why. Great. You're replacing it because I saw some guy on YouTube and he said, if your queen's 1 year old, you need to replace her. Like, nah, let's talk about what you're doing. And then I have another guy who's a friend of mine, and he said, hey, can I help you out in the apiary? And so I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. We'll see.
Well, and it's always good when you get offers for help when you've got, a bunch of activities, and you need somebody to sit at a market,
farmer's market. Yeah, I've got a couple of those coming up.
Occupy a table for you while you're doing more intensive beekeeping operations.
Yeah, that's what I want to avoid. And as Riverview Road Apiary kind of grows, I want to avoid being a manager. I can go to Caterpillar and be a manager and get paid more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And so I want to make sure that
there's less getting stung too.
There's less. Well, I don't know, man. It's a different kind of stinging. So anyway, so right now we've got 4 people, and they're all mostly pretty new. Some have got a lot of shine on them. The high schooler started today. There was a lot of brand new.
Dazed and confused looks.
Yeah, brand new shininess of hulls and
I think
what's.
we talked on the phone about a plan for bringing in some virgin queens from
Michigan. Yeah, the state of Michigan, from Kobe apiaries, actually, is who I talked to.
And we have a desire to bring those in, both for genetics and for people wanting queens, but they're virgins, which means we got to get them mated.
Yeah, which means we got to get.
And that means we have to have mating nukes, and then if you want mating nukes, that means you got to get stuff out of your existing queen castles, and so it's like, hey, you got a lot of work. Glad you got some new help for interns, and then you were like, yeah. Hang up the phone, intern shows up and be like, hey, got a plan for to do today. This is what we're going to do. And then start handing out orders, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, not quite ready for that yet. But I have sold and replaced in the last week. This is kind of shocking to me. I was thinking about it as we were talking. We do a pre-talk about what we're going to talk about, and I was thinking about it. I had to replace 2 of the queens for colonies that I manage. I have had a request for 2 queens from somebody that we know at the club. And then I've had another request for queens from another person that actually I'd never met before, but showed up today, real bright. So that's 5. And I've had 2 more queens that I've sold. So that's 7. I think I have 8 queens I've sold and or had requests for in the last week. So
this doesn't seem that out of scope for. Corey Stevens, right, started as sort of a hobby beekeeper and then realized that there was a big demand for queens, and so now he's kind of known for the queens he produces. So it seems like it's one of those things that as soon as you start to go semi, part-time, what's the...
Sideliner?
Sideliner, thank you. As soon as you start to go sideliner, one of the things everybody starts looking for you for is an extra queen. So.
Yeah. So, yeah, that'll be... I also filled up the QC 100, which is the queen lay. You close her into a little box. She lays that little box full of eggs. We've had 0 success with that in the past. But this time I'm going to let the eggs develop into little larvae.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to wait 3 days. She's laid it mostly full. I'm going to see what takes. Wait 3 days, and then I'm going to use that to graft, as grafts.
Maybe, if they make it 3 days.
If they make it 3 days. We'll see if maybe they just don't like the thing. Who knows?
It seems like it's a popular thing and it's been around for years, but maybe
there's something wrong with the China knockoff. All
of the I can't be the kale, Mike. It's just the same plastic and it's the same cell size,
yeah.
but at the same time, all the videos of the commercial guys you see grafting is the little lady sitting there dropping larvae into easy beasy cell cups. So
yeah.
What do they know that we don't?
I don't know. So I used. She is entirely black, full black body.
Are you grafting off your Putin, sir? Off your Russians? Maybe.
Maybe that might be.
Look, they've been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about one of our longtime club members. He likes to run an apiary full of mostly that flavor.
Yes.
And has been fairly successful at it.
Relatively mean. He said that his are relatively mean, so I'm interested to see what those actually are.
It's been my experience. They're a little bit more spicy. They're a little bit more in your face.
This one is not. This queen is a real dark Russian queen, so there are different breeds of bees out there. This is not a certified Russian, but she's a real dark, almost black queen, and that hive tends to be pretty nice. I did not get bumped when I did it. I get roared at a little bit because, it's in a nuke right now. This one's in a small nuke because I'd split this off. So it's a small nuke, and we'll see how they do. I'm really interested in this experiment.
I have a note here that says that there are some new products available at the Riverview Road Apiary.
It is
sort of a side note to the Beekeeping Buddies podcast, but we're associated here closely with RRA.
Yeah, we're technically sponsored by RRA. Riverview Road Apiary is my apiary, and we pay for our hoster. That's how we do our podcast. So they disseminate this out to all of the different areas, and we pay for that. So I've long been associated with Blackbeard Canning. They have hot sauces that actually have flavor, and he grows his peppers locally, his ghost pepper, and then dries them and all of that stuff. He's really deep into hot peppers, and so he uses honey in some of those hot peppers. And I wanted him to use. I wanted a hot honey.
His hot sauces.
Yeah, sorry, his hot sauces. Thank you. And I wanted a hot honey that tasted good. I've tasted a lot of hot honeys out there. A lot of them are just hot.
They're sweet and then they just burn.
Yeah. So I wanted one. So there's a peach mango one, real nice, and then there's another hot honey, Scorched Road hot honey, which is more along the lines of real sweet and burns. So. We have him, so we have worked together for a long time, so now you can go to my website and buy his products. I actually put all of his products on there because I'm a fan. And then the other one was an answer for folks that are looking for to support our native pollinators, right? We get a lot of that. I get a lot of that personally. Yeah. And so
how do I support mason bees or carpenter bees or
they're not honeybees. Like
yep.
I need a lower committal, right? Like I don't want honeybees. I don't want to pay you for put honeybees out here, but I do want my native species bees. And so I looked around for a long time and I found crown bees. So I'm going to be offering same sort of thing. I'm going to be selling crown bees, bee houses with straws and things like that. Yep. That'll be on the website going forward. So if you ever want to support your local pollinators, Crown Bees is a really nice website, good information, and excellent product.
So I also see a little tasting jar of some freshly harvested pollen in front of me here.
It is.
I came in through the kitchen and heard the slight hum of the machine on the counter. I was like, are we running a dehumidifier as in something for the house? And then I thought, no, that's on the counter. That's probably like a food dehydrator, not a dehumidifier, which is, close.
They're close. So, yeah, I have an industrial food dehydrator, mostly because I thought it'd be really exciting to make jerky, and then decided not to make jerky and made dehydrated apples, which is Kelly's favorite thing to snack on in the whole.
Yep. The fruits turn out really well.
The fruits turn out really well.
We've had one for years when we got our first garden, and we've tried to do a bunch of stuff in it. And by far, our best things to turn out of it were when we dehydrate our fruits.
There should be an asterisk warning: do not dehydrate peppers in the house.
Does it become a little spicy with the capsaicin?
Capsaicin, that's it.
Is it capsaicin?
Yeah.
It's the stuff that makes the pepper spicy.
Yes, and it gets airborne. And then you have
a little teary in the kitchen, is it?
You have pepper spray in your house. So don't do that. Or if you do that in a garage or some other area that can be aired out.
You grew ghost peppers?
Yeah, I've grown ghost peppers.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, most I've grown is some like jalapenos or something like that.
No, I have the jalapenos in my little aquaponics
Aero garden.
Yeah, the Aero garden. That plant, those 3 plants are going on year 2 now.
Yeah,
and they are hot. I just had some yesterday, thinking that I would just add a little jalapenos to my.
And for everybody following at home, he has this little paintbrush to pollinate his flowers. So
Absolutely.
He actually makes paper. He doesn't bring the bees inside.
Nope.
He pretends he's a little bumblebee.
That's right. Yeah, the biggest of the bumblebees.
Yep.
So anyway, most people don't realize that when you harvest pollen, it has a high moisture content. It's kind of they're soft. They round little pellets. They're kind of squishy and gooey.
So let's back up a second.
Okay.
If you're going to harvest raw pollen from a hive, you're going to make the bees climb through a specially sized grid that they can just squeeze through. And in doing so, the pollen baskets, which are the fancy name for the little things that collect pollen on the back legs.
Yep, the spikes.
They get the little pollen baskets get knocked off. So little clumps of pollen get knocked off their legs as they crawl through the hole. And then you're left with these little, how do you want to describe these? They're
pellets? I'd call them little pellets.
Yeah, sure. It's somewhere between a grain of rice and like a crushed up breadcrumb.
Yeah, I would say like the size of a push pin head.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And then these be dehydrated, so they look a little wrinkly. When they're fresh, they'll be more round and oval looking pushpin head. But yes, as you noted, it's fairly high moisture rate. You have to collect it off the hive like every day, otherwise it molds pretty quickly.
Yes. So I collected on the nice day that was yesterday.
Yep.
I'd put one of those in. I have an Apamane board for my wooden hives.
Yep.
They're a plastic board. They have a slide-in section.
And by board, he means a bottom board.
Bottom board, yeah. So they have a slide-in section that Steve's talking about with the little knockoff area that then falls through the bottom of the hive and falls into a collection area. It is really good. And I collected probably in one afternoon a full 1 pound container for like a honey pound container.
Yeah.
For a pollen.
So that was like probably what, 2 ounces of pollen?
Yeah, I haven't weighed it because I was going to dry it first.
Yeah.
And then see what it weighs. Pollen sells for quite a bit. Actually.
It does. I've seen other people just direct it to the freezer and freeze it, and then you don't have to worry about the dehydrating part. But if you want to be shelf stable on the counter, it needs to be dried down.
Yeah. So I'm making this shelf stable. There's a shout out to a local restaurant called the Pizza Puff. So
Pizza Puff?
It's homemade pizza. It may not stand up to Steve's level of homemade pizza. Steve makes a really good homemade pizza.
I'm still working on it, but
anyway,
ever since I got my backyard pizza oven, that'll be the extra in the
Pizza
podcast.
Puff local pizza place. It's real good. They make some interesting pizzas
As I pass this to you, I sniffed it, and it smells awfully cinnamon to me.
It is probably the sweetest. Well, let's try it. We'll try some. We're gonna do a taste test on here.
On air
taste test.
And
usually I'm not a big fan of pollen. Kelly is still not a big fan of pollen. Cinnamon, flour, and sweet.
Yep. You've described it in the past as being like eating fresh
powdered flowers.
Yeah. It definitely has a uniquely fresh taste to it. Mm-hmm. It started cinnamony. Though, the smell when you crack the jar of cinnamon and you smell it.
Yeah.
But before you actually taste it, because cinnamon, it'll have a bite to it, right? Like it'll have a spicy bite to it. But this doesn't. This has the sweet cinnamon smell, but without the spicy bite at the end.
Yeah. So that's an interesting.
And I'm curious. What I'm looking at in this little ramekin is sort of a mustard brown color, not super bright yellow, but also not any other kind of. It's not super brown. It's not super red. It's sort of a mustard brown, mustard tan color, I guess, in terms of trying to identify where it came from.
Yeah, it is not squash, but squash is that same color. The zucchini, when zucchini comes in, it looks just like that. I would put that on like a fancy hot chocolate on the top, make it look pretty.
I would sprinkle that on my ice cream.
Yeah, put it on my ice cream.
Yep.
Both those things. Good uses for that kind of stuff.
If you wanted to get some natural pollen in your diet, the way I always heard people talk about it was they'd also sprinkle it on their cereal in the morning.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
If you were wanting to incorporate.
It's technically a superfood, but if you're real allergic to stuff, you are not supposed to eat it. So
I was going to say, they talk about the local honey helping your allergies, but I can't imagine trying to
supercharge it.
Trying to go straight raw pollen. That might not work out too well with you.
Yeah.
We're going to switch over to air. In the news, we had I'm going to call it a big news story that hit, I think today or yesterday, in joint venture with the USDA.
This hit today. June 2nd. The day we're recording this.
This version posted June 1st.
Yep.
And so this is a follow-up. This is the actual paper that was published from the study of the group of people that went out this spring or early this winter when everybody was pulling their hives out of hibernation for the California almonds, and they were finding everybody was dying off. And so the USDA and a bunch of people went out to do a bunch of testing to see if they could figure out the cause of the die-offs. And this is the report / scientific article talking about what they did, how they did it, and what the outcome, what they think their conclusion is. And so the too long didn't read version is they found mites that had high virus. Well, they found bees that had high virus loads, both for deformed wing virus, both strains A and B. However, A was the much more prevalent one at 78% of the tested colonies. And most secondarily, acute B paralysis virus, which is one I can't say I'm real associated with, real known with.
Oh, we've seen that one before. It's the bees get real shaky.
Real shaky, yeah.
And they are bald. They look bald.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're saying about 71% of the tested colonies had that in it. And so though the combination of additional, both the amount of virus they had and the having multiple viruses at the same time seemed to be particularly
lethal.
Thank you. And so then they looked at what is the way that these virus loads have come to exist. And basically they found mites. They tested the mites. They found the mites that they collected and tested were, in fact, resistant to apivar, which is actually amitraz.
Yeah, the active ingredient amitraz.
Active ingredient in apivar is amitraz. So apivar is the strips.
Sorry. Yep.
And so I'll read a couple of little tidbits here, extracts. Mites from collapsed colonies in turn were screened for resistance to amitraz. They found resistance in all of the mites tested. They point a specific genetic location. That location was tested, and they all came up positive for the mutation in that genetic location. They also looked for the dead bees and sick bees that they collected. They grind them up, and they keep them all separate. So this specific one sample was derived from a single bee showing behavioral signs of disease, had a relatively high levels of acute bee paralysis virus alongside both deformed wing virus A and B. This collection of that was especially deadly when injected into ney of bees, killing exposed bees when diluted to 10 to the minus 8 from its original suspension, which means it's a teeny tiny amount was required. They continue to test to a 10 to the minus 9, so like 10 times more diluted. And they found that at 10 to the minus 9, there was no significant difference in mortality. So
still deadly.
So at 10 to the minus 9, no, wasn't deadly.
Not deadly, okay.
But the point was at 10 to the minus 8, it was. And so the fact that there was a tenfold difference in dilution led to such a drastic change in mortality from an LDL 50, so basically it killed off 50%.
Yep.
Highlights the extreme virulence of this viral combination and the steepness of its dose-response curve, which means essentially it's a really deadly combination, right? Yeah. How much of it do you need
real bad
to effectively kill off a bee? And their point was we had to get to teeny tiny amounts.
Yeah.
And so the level of amount you needed went from a teeny tiny amount to a just a little bit over a teeny tiny amount.
Yeah.
Versus some stuff where it can build up in a bee for large and large and large amounts before it actually negatively impacts. What they're saying was this specific level of virus type, when combined together, was very deadly.
So this is still being reviewed, like peer reviewed. So this may get torn apart by peers. However, Steve's got a good engineering background and likes to read these things. I like to read them too, but I hadn't had a chance to go into as depth as Steve has. We are going to talk about this in our knock-on episode. It's still important to go. This may not be scripture, but this is a good start.
It reinforces what we've been thinking for a while, which is most likely cause for losing hives you can be traced back to high mite loads.
Yes.
Because they also said that, let's see if I can find the quote here, all beekeepers in our screening relied upon amitraz for a majority of their miticide applications, underscoring the challenges faced by beekeepers in controlling mite damage. In other words, while they thought they were effectively controlling for mite loads, the fact that all the mites tested were resistant to amitraz means that they effectively probably had high mite loads. This does not actually say if there was typical testing for mite load and what those numbers were. The inference is the high virus loads found are the primary way that viruses are spread around both inside a hive and from hive to hive is through varroa mites.
Right.
So the higher number of mites you have, the higher the virus load will have, and then due to the numbers, the sort of statistical, the number of mites you have, the number of bees you have a greater chance of having a more deadly combination of both. This, like the official paper lists a group of they listed like the top 10, but I think they said that they found like a total of 532 pathogenic targets were detected.
Yeah, pathogenic. Yeah. So we have talked about like the huge viral load in honeybees. Like our bees are sick. We've talked about that before, I think. And our honeybees are walking around. Their immune system's not like ours, right? Their immune system's their gut biology. Which is also, if you go back to other episodes, we're talking about inoculating some of our queens with a thing. But yeah, I think we'll get more into this.
While it also wasn't talked about here, I'm curious if there was any attention paid to colonies coming from the south that are primarily don't overwinter hard, and therefore. I recently, because all my beekeeping, I started in outside St. Louis, and then I moved to Central Illinois. So I've always been, quasi Midwest or solid Midwest in my beekeeping. We have decently cold winters, which means our hives put on propolis. And there was a comment made recently after watching a video that people from California or maybe southern states, they don't get the propolis buildup because it doesn't, quote, get cold. And so, therefore, the bees don't make the propolis
close all the
make the propolis like they make up here in order to really close off the hive for winter.
Those who are listening, they're like, "What's propolis again?" It's bee glue with some benefits.
Yeah, well, I've always read that the propolis was one of its main defensive mechanisms for.
It's a skin of the hive.
Yeah, for the hive health in terms of being. Antibacterial and antiviral and antifungal, right? So the amount of propolis in your hive, how is that going to impact your virus levels in your hive? And if there was any sort of attention paid to how propolis-y, it's a technical term, was
trademarked.
Yeah, I know, right? Given a group of hives from the south or from California where you don't have winter versus ones that may overwinter actually in the Midwest or North where they're going to have more propolis.
And they're even hive to hive, the amount of propolis is significantly different.
It is.
Yeah, like it is. Some of them is. So I wear gloves. I wear blue nitrile gloves when I work my hives. One is because I'm in all kinds of different hives and I can swap my gloves out and I don't have to spread disease. But the other is because I don't like all the propolis on my hands and it's hard to get off and it stains everything. So you have stained propolis-y hands when you're into 70 different hives and it's not my favorite. It's on your
clothes and then it's on your car and then, it's just a pain. But at the same time, it may be, and then of course, we'd also talked about the benefits of the EFB, AFB vaccine coming.
Yeah.
And it's
not coming, it's here.
It's here, and it's carry-on effect of being able to control deformed wing virus and the benefits that'll bring to colonies. And so I'm really anxious to get my hands on one of our inoculated queens to see to start having some experience working with that and see if that really helps our colony health.
Sure.
I am a little bit concerned about management practices and what it means for trying to effectively manage swarming in those hives.
What? No, my hives don't swarm.
Dude, it seems like Every year, I have more and more swarms out of my backyard apiary, despite trying to be on top of it.
I don't think it's more and more every year. I think you're more aware every year, right? Because the first year I was for my first year of beekeeping, second year of beekeeping, I would have swore my bees they didn't swarm.
Yeah.
They almost certainly did. Now that I've been doing it 10 years, I'm like, oh, I know I made mistakes. I know that they swarmed.
And I have plenty of students that are convinced that they didn't swarm, and then we find a queen, and the queen's running around with no dot on it. I'm like, I thought you had a marked queen in here. Oh, I have a marked queen.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not what's running around. There's no marking on that. There's no rubbed off fuzzy edge of a mark on this queen. This is not the queen that has a mark on it. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, that means that's a replacement queen.
This is not the queen you're looking for.
I'm like, there's one of two ways it happened. They swarmed and you have a new queen, or they didn't like the old queen and they replaced her. But either way, it's not what you're starting with. Yeah. And that can be problematic when you're going to put a lot of effort into making a vaccinated queen, because while she's able to pass the vaccination on to her offspring, that doesn't you can't raise a queen off that offspring and expect it to be vaccinated. That's not how it currently works with the tool that we have available in our toolbox. So that's we're going to talk about some more details. I'm going to get into the nitty gritty on all the fun details about that in a follow-up episode. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. We'll have more on that coming. I think we need to get to some questions because
we got a lot.
We got a lot of questions.
I'm actually, this is exciting because we've asked for questions, and the Discord group, I'm not sure how many we get listeners we got. By the way, we've broken 2,000. We broke the 2,500 mark. We broke the 2,600 mark. I haven't checked it for a couple days because I've been busy.
Yeah.
But we're approaching that 3,000 number of listens mark, and that's exciting.
I was you put a call out to the group, the class that you were in your master beekeeping class with, and I am honestly surprised at the number of respondents that have decided to jump in there and be active in the Discord.
Yeah.
That's been available I created a Discord for the club, for our local club, and made that available, and I've had like 3 takers from that, so it's real interesting to see the
difference,
the demographics, how the demographics of different organizations impact their willingness to use a more modern
system of communication,
networking.
Yeah. Anyway, people have been real. Have asked all kinds of questions on there. So we have
if you're looking for a link, go to Riverview Road Apiary. I think there's a link there, right?
Not yet,
maybe
but there will be.
Just on the podcast page.
On the podcast page, or on our Facebook page, there is a link at Riverview Road Apiary's Facebook.
And if we ever get the landing page for beekeepingbuddies.org finished, there'll be one there. First off, I had a question from one of my students. She was going to put she did put a medium box of plastic frames, all plastic, not plastic foundation, 100% plastic. Yeah, she put a whole, that's what she had bought those.
Those are very cheap.
They are inexpensive.
And I know some local beekeepers, Tom Benkonen, who really likes those. And I know Tom sometimes listens. So those are something that I don't love because they have too many hiding spots for a small hive beetle.
So
for me,
her hives that started from our nukes, they're doing well. And
we did have to replace a queen.
Yeah, but we're a little unclear of
what actually happened.
What actually happened there?
Yeah, that's okay.
So. The other one is growing quickly. Unfortunately, they seem to be wanting to put all of the honey in the second deep and not put it in a honey super. Oh. So we put a honey super on there. They have absolutely ignored it.
Okay.
I said, okay, well, here, how about this? I'll put it down between the 2 boxes.
Sure.
And now you will definitely not ignore it.
Right.
They ignored it.
Oh.
So now we're thinking that perhaps it doesn't have enough wax on the frames. They are in fact waxed as received, but maybe they don't like the amount of wax on the all plastic frames, and so she was going to acquire some wax to do re-waxing of plastic frames. And as I have been recycling equipment in my yard and putting things through the solar wax melter and things, I have been doing a lot of wax melting and touching up of plastic frames foundation.
Sure.
So she had some questions about that as she received her.
Hold on. We need to go back. Take a step back. Solar wax melter. Walk me through what yours is. In like a 30-second. I know what it is.
I replaced the windows in my old farmhouse, so I've got like a 2-foot square.
So it's a single pane
window, and it sits on top of a 1x6 box that I built.
Yep.
With it's slanted, so I can point it to the sun.
Yep.
It's got a sheet metal back to it.
Yep.
That acts as my backdrop.
Get her hotter.
Get her hotter, and it runs down, and then I've got some Amazon silicone muffin loaf pans at the bottom.
Yep.
That catch my wax, and then those are easy to pop out. And
so there you go. And there's lots of them online. But for those that don't know, you can throw frames, you can throw scummy wax in there.
Yeah, the nice thing about mine is it's big enough that I can put 3 full-size frames, 3 deep frames.
Yep.
In at the same time, and they all get sun.
There's people who are listening that are going to go, what? He's got what?
Yeah.
Right? So that's basically it. It's an easy way to collect wax and clean up frames.
So she doesn't have all of the wax, all of the previous equipment, so she just went to Amazon and bought a pound of wax. I said, fine, it'll work. She wanted tips on what kind of brush to use. She saw me using my paintbrush. I have an old paintbrush. She had a question on, should you use a natural brush or a synthetic bristle brush? And then that went down a rabbit hole of why do we have natural bristle and synthetic bristle and water-based paints and oil-based paints, pros and cons of why. But at the end of the day, your synthetic bristle brush is likely a nylon product, and the melting point of nylon is probably significantly more than the temperature at which you will want to get your wax in your melting pot. So don't worry about it.
Yep.
And 90% of your standard paint brushes you're going to buy at the hardware store for painting your house or trim. We're not talking about artist brushes to paint minis or, your canvas, art painting. We're talking about the stuff that you use to paint trim and household stuff.
Yep.
Is going to be nylon bristled brushes. They work fine.
I personally use cheap horsehair animal brushes that you can buy at Menards. And you can buy them in like a bag of
not everybody's got a Menards.
Well, you should come to the Midwest.
I mean, it's a great place.
But anyway, they have like real cheap animal brushes, and they come in bags of like about 30.
You're talking about the disposable one, the quote unquote disposable ones. Yeah.
And that's what I use, because at the end of the day, after I'm done painting my frames, I don't care, and I throw away the brush.
I saved mine. I told her, I was like, this is not a brush you're going to reuse for painting. It's just going to be forever the wax brush, because, like, if you're using the paint, if it's water-based, you wash it out, the water dries, you're left with a fresh, fluffy brush. If it's oil-based, you use a solvent thinner.
Yeah.
Right? You wash the paint out, and then the thinner evaporates, your solvent evaporates, and you're left with a fluffy brush. There's no solvent that's going to dissolve the wax, so it's just going to stay in the brush.
Yeah.
So the next time you use it, just put it in your pot while you're melting your wax. It'll warm up. It'll get pliable again. You can use it a second or third or fourth, or I've had mine for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I use mine as fire starters.
Yeah. Okay. So, there you go. Yeah. How much to use? In other words, I've got my pound of wax. How far should my pound of wax go? How many frames
will that cover?
Yeah, how many frames will it cover? And I want to say that in the past, I've probably made my pound of wax last about 10 frames, 10 deep frames. I think we've talked about this in the past. I think you were about the same.
I'm trying to think back. In my head, I'm going, I bet it covers 10 deep frames.
Yep. So that's 20 sides.
And now I'm thinking about this. I believe I just watched a video by Dirt Rooster.
Yeah.
Who also, I think, settled at about a pound a pound for 10.
Do I think commercially available spray applicated wax on foundation, are you getting a pound of wax on 10 plastic foundations? And I think the answer there is no.
No, absolutely not.
So does it feel like, so the question is, how does that work? And I'm like, well, if you're about halfway into your frames, if you're about 3 frames in, 3 foundations in, I do it in the frame, right? So that's why I'm talking about frames. If you're 3 frames in, it looks like you're about halfway done with your wax, you probably might want to ease up a little bit.
Sure.
If you're 8 frames in, it looks like you're about halfway through your wax, well, you can go back and touch some up some more because you're on the light end.
Yep.
I said because you're re-waxing frames that are already waxed, you don't have to go that heavy. So sort of judge based on, are you halfway in and halfway used? If not, you're doing great.
So as a sideline question to this, how clean does your wax have to be to apply it to these frames? As in, like, when do you still have scum gum in yours? Have you used, like, I've got a block right now of black honey because it's got so much dirt in it.
So I am not
There's a black wax on it.
real concerned about this being my most bestest filtered honey.
Yeah. Is this your cappings? Is this your cappings wax?
If that's all I have to work with, sure. But I typically will screen out the chunks. However, I threw some chunks in directly out of the wax melter when I was on site at the apiary, where we were melting over a little camping stove on site, doing some touch ups in the field, and there was some chunk. There was a bee floating around in there. There was some little cocoons floating around in there, and the reality is the paintbrush doesn't pick it up, right? Like only the wax really is sucked up into the bristles of the brush. So really, if you just kind of push them around, push the trash around, you can effectively use what feels like pretty trashy looking wax and just paint on what looks like nice clean wax onto. Now,
so I've gone a step further. The reason I asked this is because this year I went a step further to see what they'd put up with.
Yeah.
And so I dipped a frame. So I was melting some beeswax in a turkey boiler with water underneath it.
Yeah.
And I dipped and it was deep enough that I could dip half a frame and then turn it and dip half a frame.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it's got it's brownish,
super chunky,
right?
Yeah.
They are doing a great job of pulling that
chewing it out
and making it into. Now, is my wax beautiful and white? Nope.
No.
But they don't care.
Nope. So is it my super clean yellow stuff? No, but is it covering the plastic and giving them a nice wax surface to promote them to draw on the plastic foundation well and not pull off of it like they do when they don't like the plastic? Yes.
So actually, this also made me think of a cutout we did. Remember the cutout we did that had the wasp nest?
Yeah.
And they chewed up the wasp nest
and used it
to draw as wax. I was like, oh, yeah, they don't really care that much. That was really cool, by the way. But,
the last question she had was the cleanup pot reuse. I have a dedicated garage sale pot that I bought for $0.25. It's an old fiberware.
It is the season for the garage sales too.
It is, and so if you want to dedicate a nice pot from the kitchen, I suppose you could. You don't really try to. She's like, well, if you let it cool, you can chip it off. And I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. If it's in a big clump at the bottom, if you leave a 1/4 inch at the bottom, sort of run the pot on a hot flame, that'll melt the very surface edge up against the pot, and then it just kind of slides out as a chunk.
Yeah.
You're still left with a film. Yeah. The best way is while it's still hot, take a paper towel and wipe that out and keep wiping it out until your paper towel comes out clean.
Yep.
And that's there's no soap or nothing. It's you can't wash it. You as a cold substance, with a razor blade or something, you're trying to scrape the surface. It doesn't really work that well. The best way, and I said this also works if you spill on your stovetop. Yeah. I get out my torch, the same one I light my smoker with. And I just torch the top. I just give my top of my stove. Yeah,
exactly what I do.
Yep. And what that does is that flash melts the little spot of wax on top of the porcelain of the stove. And then while it's still flash wet, I take a dry paper towel and wipe it up, and then it just disappears, right? It's all on the paper towel, no longer on the stove.
Now, when it's on I have some marble countertops, and I have a nice hardwood floor. Those I use the little scrubbers, the little angled bottom of the pot scrubbers.
Oh yeah,
And the wax doesn't stick to the marble enough.
No.
It kind of snaps off, even when it's thin. And then on the floor, it does the same thing, but also you're walking over it so much, you'll just polish it out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if it's hardwood, you waxed your floors with actual carnauba wax. Yeah. So it's 100% an honest to goodness floor treatment. So moving on, we have a bunch of other questions. This one says, I have some queenless colonies from swarming, queenless for 4 to 5 weeks, but not laying worker yet. Will I add I will add queen cells in 10 days. Is it necessary to add nurse bees from another colony?
So this is beekeeping has all those questions that are, the answer is maybe, or it depends, right? I think this is a depends one. Personally, would I do this? It's 4 to 5 weeks. They haven't had anyone in there. I would personally, if I have another hive, I would move a frame of nurse bees over.
So I probably wouldn't move a frame of nurse bees. I'd probably move a frame of capped brood.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, nurse bees. I'm doing nurse bees covering brood / cap brood. Yeah.
I mean, as opposed to shaking nurse bees. But
Yeah.
my solution is probably just to move a frame of cap brood, and then that cap brood hatches out, and I got nurse bees.
Yeah. So both solutions there, but yes, the overall answer is yeah, we both would move.
But the nice thing about
over.
moving cap brood is it gives off the cap brood scents, which continues to suppress the laying worker.
Good point.
Instinct.
Yeah.
So it still buys me some more time while I'm waiting for a queen to start doing queen things.
I don't understand why they're moving a queen cell over in 10 days. It's been queenless for 4 to 5 weeks.
I feel like they have a queen cell that's developing, and the timing on that requires them to wait another 10 days before they can safely move it.
I would.
They didn't realize it's been queenless for that long or something?
Queen. I would have bought a virgin queen and put it in.
I mean, we're still early enough into the year where maybe they're just wanting to make their own queens as opposed to trying to find somebody to purchase one from. But
maybe.
At the same time, you're still early enough in the honey season that you might want to get a honey crop.
But you've already been queenless for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
When you put grafted queen cells into your queenless hive, do you put in 1 or 2 for good measure? A commercial beekeeper told me he always uses 2 to be safe. But it's more important, what would you do?
How many hive? So commercial. How many queens do you have access to? Right? How many cells do you have access to? And how confident are you with your grafted queen cells?
I have an answer to this one.
Okay, go for it.
I'm going to ignore the grafted queen cells part for my first answer. And so my first answer is if I'm going through a hive and I find a frame that has 3 or 4 queen cells on it, if it's on plastic foundation, I can't pull those queen cells off. So I'm just moving the whole frame over that comes with 2 or 3 queen cells.
Yep.
So automatically, for 90% of the hobbyists out there, you're moving 2 or 3 or more queen cells as part of your split or whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the normal answer is probably more than 1. Now, if you're grafting, I sort of have more faith in my grafted cells than because they were specifically raised as queen cells as opposed to emergency queen cells that were promoted off of existing eggs, on the side of a frame. So I might have more faith in my my grafted queen cells where I don't feel like I have to put more than 1 in the hive. But like you said, if I've got a bunch, if I want 5 queens, I didn't graft 5 cells. If I wanted 5 queens, I probably grafted 15 cells, hoping 10 take. Yeah. And out of the 10, if I only want 5, I got no problems putting 2 in.
2 in each.
2 in each.
Yeah.
It also is a question of how much equipment you have.
Yeah.
Right? I can't, even if I made 10, if I had successful 10 take, it means I need 10 mating nukes. Well, maybe I don't have 10 mating nukes. Maybe I don't have enough brood to put in 10 mating. Even if I had, sell queen castles or pro nukes to put them in, 5-frame nukes to put them in. If I don't have enough brood to split down that far, then I'll just put 2 cells in a box.
So for me, the answer is, if I have the resources to do so, does it hurt to put 2 queens in, 2 queen cells in? Not queens, queen cells. And I think the answer is no. It doesn't hurt.
No.
So if you want to and you have the resources, it doesn't hurt. Now, it's going to hurt one of the queens. They'll kill one of them.
Yep.
But it's not going to hurt you. And if you think you're hedging your bets that way, I mean, that's what a colony does, right? They put 10 in. They're raising 10 or 5 or whatever, right? So if you want to be more like a colony, sure, put 2 in. But I would not say, should I go out and buy 2 queen cells to put in there?
No.
Do not do that.
There's a question about how do you deal with a honeybound hive, which is a perfect question to ask.
Especially this time of year.
Especially this time of year when you forgot to put on a honey super, or you didn't realize you needed to put a honey super on your brand new starter 5-frame nuke and or package this spring.
Swarmed.
And now it swarmed. And now you pulled that top middle box of the frame, that number 5 frame, and the top box of your 2 deeps, and you see 3/4 of it in honey.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh boy, now what?
Yeah. So I've dealt with this, and I've got a hive right now that I'm dealing with that on. I have a lot of equipment though, so I have more options than most people have.
I think the answer is still the same. You just put more equipment on it.
Well, the answer for me for that honeybound is, first of all, I want to emergency make room for them, and they have all the resources there. So I pull the honeybound frames. I pull the 5-frame, 6-frame, 7-frame, or however you want to, like 3, 4, 5. Depends on how real bad honeybound you are. So I pull those frames, and I put in empty new frames.
Yep.
Draw them out. Go ahead. You guys are, especially if I've already got equipment up above, and you're not drawing that out, go for it, guys. Congratulations. You have 3 new frames, and I've seen them draw those out in less than a week.
3 days, 4 days.
3 days, and then they're all laid up. Now, if they draw them out in 3 days or 4 days, and they refill them with honey, then I cuss at them for a little while, and I usually do the same thing. I still have equipment on top. I'll still put that room on top. But pull the frame, extract the frame. By all means, extract the frame. Get your honey out of it. Right?
Well,
because it's like 10 pounds of honey.
It's not necessarily its cap though, right? Like some of mine are they're still shiny because like right now they're not capped. Now if it's another month from now and it's July 4th weekend,
I just was in a hive today that has 10 frames on top, and 5 of those 10 frames are capped.
Yeah.
So,
but if they're backfilling a brood nest at this point,
it's
probably not capped. They probably just started backfilling it within the last week or 2, and that's probably not ready yet. So it's probably still open and shiny.
So I'll usually in that case, right? I have other nukes that I'm raising. I'll pull and move to a nuke to give them resources to work on.
If you've got more than just ones or twosies in your apiary, it's an excellent time to do some balancing.
Yeah.
Right. Move some hives, move some frames that are just honey over and give them space, and then give them that honey super on top. I found by just giving a honey super on top, that doesn't mean they're just going to stop doing that and just start moving it up.
Absolutely not.
Right. So you're like, I gave you all the space.
Yeah.
You totally ignored it, and you continue to backfill the super, the deep, and now here it is July 4th weekend, and I'm extracting basically a full deep, and you've swarmed.
Yes.
And I'm like, dang it, guys! I gave you space and you ignored it.
Yeah.
Which is why you kind of fall back to that. You need to actually physically remove those frames to give them the space.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway of that.
So something else and you talked about it. We touched already in the podcast on it. Say, okay, I have my 2 deep boxes that are on there. My colony is still backfilling, and I had already put a honey super on top, and they're not touching my honey super. And I've waxed the frames, right? So say I've
or natural wax.
I've natural wax, all that stuff, and they're still not touching the top. So I have one of those hives right now. Now I have a queen excluder before that medium.
Sir, that's a honey excluder.
It is. They will not. So this hive that I have will not climb past that queen excluder. They don't.
I've seen it.
And yeah, right. And they just won't do it. So after I've messed with them enough, after I've given them a chance, and I usually give them a week, and if they're not doing it, we'll do exactly what you actually did in your explanation before. I'll pull the top deep off.
Yep.
I put the medium in between the two deeps, and I put it back on. They hate that gap. They hate that that void, right?
Yep.
I've always heard nature abhors a void, and I said that to somebody, and they looked at me like I'd grown a third head. So yeah, nature abhors a void, and honeybees are a part of nature. They don't like it, so they'll fill that gap 90% of the time. I say they fill that gap.
But in the same vein, although sort of in the opposite direction, what happens if you have difficulty getting bees to move up to drawn supers, even with a frame of honey in the super?
Oh, so actually we didn't talk about that. Putting a frame of honey in the super or an empty frame that's drawn up there often is enough for them to go, this is
actually part of the hive up here.
We should move up here.
Yeah.
So that often is okay.
But I think that sort of dovetails into what we were saying with, if you've done that and they're still not wanting to move up to it, you can always have the option to move it down below and really try to force the issue.
First step I would do is check my frames and see if they're waxed enough. Is my first thing.
Yeah. This is drawn super though, right? So it's not undrawn.
Oh, okay.
So if it's drawn, then
manipulate it, put it in between.
Yeah.
And if it's an old drawn super, I have seen them move up and be like, I'm skipping this frame.
I 100% have seen them.
And you at that point pull that frame.
That's their way of telling you that frame is time to be moved on.
Yeah. You retire it, whatever you don't use that again. Yeah.
We have another question about trying fastest way to fix a drone laying queen coming out of winter. So this probably means it's her third year and she's super low on sperm.
Yes. Or she got cold and her
killed off her sperm?
Her sperm and the spermatheca didn't make it.
Yep. And the fastest way to fix that is to replace the queen.
Yeah. And so, but if you're coming out of winter, maybe what they're doing is, hey, I'm coming out of winter and there's nothing available. The way that I would fix it personally. So let's look at worst case scenario. We're in March here in the Midwest. There's no queens available because there's no queens available in March in the Midwest.
Yep.
We have nice weather for some bizarre reason because it's the Midwest and it decided to have nice weather for March. Now what do I do? I don't have a queen, or I do have a queen and she's just laying drones. Now what do I do? And to me, that's the worst case scenario.
So what would I do with that? If my population was low and I was worried about them continuing to collapse and not make it to my April and things were going to pick up, I think that's an excellent opportunity to squish her and do a newspaper combined.
Yeah. So I would squish her, cut slits of newspaper, put it on top of a strong hive, split it back out. And
then what that does is that's going to mix your population. It's going to maintain, especially if you've got overwintered honey on that hive or something, right? That's going to maintain that and make sure that that's usable resource as they move into the spring. You'll boost the population of the hive that you move it on top of, and then in another month, when you have your flying drones, it's an excellent opportunity to split it back down, and you'll still have your two hives, and you won't have lost that much time.
So when you squish her, I also wait 24 hours. So, and by squish her, the easiest way to kill her, I just actually did this for somebody. They had a queen that we needed to get rid of, and the easiest way to do her is locate her, rubbing alcohol, paint thinner, any solvent you drop her into, and she immediately dies. So rubbing alcohol is my go-to for that.
Here's a question on how to requeen a seriously large, mean hive with different genetics. So
Yes, they have a laying queen.
They're not just queenless. So for everybody who's new and listening, a hive that is queenless will typically be much more testy. They will be much more in your face because they just don't have the queen around to sort of calm everybody down. So this is different than that. This is if they are actually a difficult hive to work. And in that case, I guess there's two. I have two takes on this. Number one, do you have an opportunity to, like, if it's something you really don't want to do, or is it just something you don't want to have around because it's a problem for the yard with the kids, a problem with the yard with the neighbor, or do you have an out yard and while they might be pissy bees to work, they do, in fact, are my best honey producers, right? If that's the case, you might rethink wanting to squish the queen, right? Are you able to relocate the hive to be not a problem for your neighbors or your backyard and still hang on to the hive because it's a great producer? Like, great. I get it's all up in your face and they're not the funnest to work, but if they're hard working, well productive, overwintering bees.
If they're mean enough to be stinging me, I won't put up with them.
Okay.
That's my rule in my yard, is that if I'm popping the lid or here the real good one is like
if they're following you.
If they're following
me.
Yeah.
That's my cutoff.
Yeah.
If you're bumping me and you're up in my face when I open you up, like if you're not chasing me off 30 feet into the yard, I'm still willing to work with you.
Yeah, if you're chasing me off 30 feet into the yard.
Now we're in the territory where you're going to be requeened.
Yeah. And so the interesting part of that is I've had the most. So I've dealt with this a few times.
I have not dealt with this.
I've dealt with this probably 3 times, and actually I've got one in the yard right now. I'm thinking about. I can't find the queen in it. It's full of freaking brood. I'm wondering if they swarmed, but anyway, because they're mean after they've swarmed. Almost all my bees are jerks after they've swarmed until they get the queen, because they want you out of that hive. So the one that I had right outside my window in my house would wait for you to walk out either the front door or the back door, which the front door is on the opposite side of the house.
Yep.
They would fly over the house and sting you. Not chase you and bump you, sting you. So that one, after about a week of trying to figure out what to do with it, I ended up dawning it, which is a cup of Dawn mixed with a quart or so of water, and you mix it up and you put a screen on top and you close the entrance and you pour the Dawn water down through the hive, and it kills everybody instantly almost.
So when I did this, when we got rid of the EFB hives, having a bonfire in the backyard wasn't really an option.
Yeah.
So we went and got the garden hose, a 5-gallon bucket, and a bottle of Dawn. And so I would fill up the 5-gallon bucket and then add a hefty squirt, and then fill up the bucket with the hose so it got all sudsy.
Yeah.
And then I poured the full 4 gallons of the sudsy water down through the hive, making sure to cover all of the gaps between the frames with my waterfall.
And it's pretty instant. Like when they die,
absolutely.
It's really fast.
Like the comment of the person at the time was, that's going to kill them? I'm like, oh yeah. And then like 30 seconds later, we're going through the hive to make sure everybody got good coverage, and there's a pile of dead bees, and they're like, are they already dead? And I'm like, they're already dead. And she's like, oh, wow, that's like instant. And I'm like, basically.
Yeah. So if they're that bad, if they're so bad that I can't work them, then I don't keep them around.
Otherwise, if it's something in between, break them down, right?
Yes.
Break them all the way down to maybe 5-frame nukes or something.
3 frames. And requeens.
And requeen, and then you'll probably be successful at breaking up whatever bad tendencies they've learned.
The ones that are real, and you're still 45 days out until all of the jerks are replaced.
Yeah.
The ones that I've seen that are real bad will usually kill your queen. So,
Yeah.
like, they have to be queenless, which makes them even angrier. So they have to be queenless for 24 hours. You have to squish them, squish all the queens, because you still don't want those genetics. So they have to be hopelessly queenless. They can't make a queen now. And then you can introduce a queen, and then they might accept her. And if they don't, it's no big loss. You just start over.
Our last question for this week is a question that gets at the heart of sort of moving from your beginner beekeeper to your intermediate beekeeper. Mm-hmm. So this is probably an issue that crops up about your third or fourth year. Mm-hmm. And it's essentially it comes up when you're past 2, but somewhere less than 20.
Yep.
And you have found yourself typically almost about this time of year where you've caught some swarms, you've made some splits, you weren't expecting to make, and before you know it, you find yourself running ragged in the bee yard. Yeah. It seems like you feel like you're having to be out there instead of the one day of the week as your hobby, you're having to schedule to be out there this day, and then when you're out there this day, you find more stuff you have to deal with, and I don't have time, so you're going to have to schedule a second day. You go out the second day, and you find some more stuff, and you don't have time, and you still didn't make it through all the hives, and now you have to be back out there a third day, and now you're really wondering, do I really want to be doing this? Yeah. I'm putting way more hours into this than I used to be doing a couple years ago, and the question that experience I just described. What number of hives, so you can, if anybody wants to leave comments, if you've gone through this and you recognize the story I just told as one you've lived, what was the number of hives you hit when you felt like you were living that life?
Yeah, so for me, I've lived this life. Actually, both of us have.
I have.
Yeah. So for me, that number was 10. It was like a significant jump, seemed to be a significant jump from 9 to 10. And at that point, I was working a full-time job that was not beekeeping. I was happily married, still happily married, but happily married, working a full-time job, and 10 hives, and I am out in the apiary, pretty happy still. And I'm out there exactly like Steve said. Okay, I got to do this, and I have to fix this. Now I have to fix this, and I have to do this. And this one's queenless, so I have to do this. And so it is.
It felt like it snowballed.
Yeah,
because invariably when you started, you may have started with 2 hives, and then maybe the next year you got some more equipment, and maybe you caught a swarm, so you got some more equipment. So maybe you're at 4 hives. Right, and so now this is the start of year 3 or whatever year it is for you, and the same thing. You overwintered. You had 4. You didn't expect everybody to overwinter, so in February you ordered a couple replacements, and then surprise, surprise, March came after you already put your orders in, and you had like everybody live. So now you had 4, but you got 2 more coming. I'm like, okay, well I'll just add 2 more, right? So now you got 6. Well. Then you caught some swarms, and then you opened up one that you didn't get to, and then there's some queen cells. Oh, I'll make some splits. I got some 5-frame nukes, right? And then before you know it, you're out of woodenware. And so now you're going through a hive, realizing that this one needs another 10 frames of this, and I don't have any. You're looking around the yard like, I don't have any more frames. So now you're scrambling to try to find equipment. And when I started, I built a lot of my, like I was buying unassembled equipment, unassembled frames, unassembled boxes.
Well, it was way more prevalent back then.
Yeah.
It's still, there's still some of it out there. But,
yeah, for sure. Now, you have to go look for it, though.
Yeah, you have to find it now.
And because the cost of assembled versus unassembled was so different back then that economically everybody just built their own. And so you were looking at like 2 hours to spend in shop time of building stuff. And I remember a couple of times where
painting, right?
Yeah.
They have to be painted.
So that, just about the time you'd spend a week putting together, your 10 frames and your 2 boxes, and you're getting it all ready to go, and you go out there on a Saturday and you throw it on and you go to the next 2 boxes, and gosh darn it, they need they need those. They need the exact same thing. So you rinse and repeat, right? And so again, that number for me was right at 10. Right, it was in the 9 to 11 sort of phase.
Yeah.
And
something weird happens then too, because then you become known by your friends as a bee guy, and they tell their friends. Then all of the snowballing happens, but then you get weird questions, and then you get weird gifts, which you don't really want to throw away because they're bee gifts.
You
right?
don't have the solar-powered bee gnome in your yard that you got as a gift?
I don't have that one.
Oh, I might have gotten that one.
I have some aluminum Honeybee paperweights.
Okay.
So that's an interesting one. I've got some really nice wooden honeybee cutout stuff, like a carved honeybee layer that's been put together. That one's pretty neat. I've got a 3D honeybee puzzle that I got from a friend. That's pretty awesome. But anyway, so like at 10, you become like the bee person. And then you get calls from people for weird non-bee stuff. I've got bees living in my ground. Probably not honeybees, but hey, could you come take a look? So, it's not only that the hives kind of snowball, it's that the people in your name spreads, and that starts to snowball. And then you have to make a decision.
I think it's pretty. I've been in 2 bee clubs, and I think almost universally, the number of hives that the average hobbyist person in those clubs worked was in the 2 to 4 number, right? Yeah. You might have had a lot at 4 now. Like a lot of the old timers, a lot of guys had been keeping bees for over 10 years. Yep. They had a pile of equipment sitting in the side because they've done the cycle and then reduced back down. Yeah. And so they have extra stuff. So you go to their apiary and you see a bunch of stuff sitting around, but the reality is they're only working, the 4 to 5, and that's really a comfortable number to get a good honey crop of, give you some cushion in case things go wrong. Yeah, something swarms. You were planning on getting a honey crop off of this guy. Like, how many times have you cracked a hive in March and they're boiling? You're like, oh man, this is going to be a great hive this year. I'm going to be all over this one, and then like middle of April, they swarm on you and you don't know because it's so early, and then you go to add stuff to them and they're like, man, these guys just petered off. I'm like, these were going to be my big hive. This was going to be my hive. This is the one I was going to get the 150 pounds off of this year. Yep. And then it just didn't happen.
Nope. And realistically, if I wanted to be a hobbyist and you said how many hives do you want to be a hobbyist, I would do 2 hives and 2 nukes. That's what 2 hives, and maybe now that I know more, I might do 3 Palmer hives, Palmer splits, because those are nice.
I think I don't know, man, because
that's 6 hives.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. What people don't understand is you're in those like every 3 days, though.
Yeah, I am. But I really like that. So I'm not a good example.
No, because what is the thing that we fight with beginners all the time? Yeah, they don't want to got my new package. Yeah. I installed my new package, and 6 weeks later,
I haven't been in there.
There's a giant swarm sitting outside of my tree, and I just put bees in. I don't understand. I'm like, well, how many times? When was the last time you were in it? You're like, what do you mean in it? Yeah, like you. Yeah. So like, that propensity for beginners to like not be in their bees because we're afraid of the bees, which was a conversation we were having pre-show. Yeah. That like that whole thing is so prevalent that suggesting that they run Palmer nukes, which build so quickly, and you have to be in all of the time in order to effectively manage them, is not the thing we want to recommend to beginners.
But they're good. You're right. It is not one. However, if I knew what I was doing and I sold all my stuff, then I'd go back and be like,
it's amazing the number of old timers that have done everything in the bee industry, and they seem in their retirement years, the thing they're doing is actively teaching, mentoring students, and having a yard full of nukes, and I sell nukes because they're easy to work.
A good point.
They're easy to work.
They're
fun. They're not mean.
Ever.
They're small. They're easy to like. Pop the frame. Look at my 5 frames. You're done. Look at my 3 frames. You're done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're
There's
easy
the
to
queen.
move. There's the queen.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with a lot of heavy honey.
Yep.
Right. And
Well, you do. You can deal, and you can still pull honey. Like you can.
You could.
My Palmer nukes routinely produce 30 pounds per half.
Yeah.
Which is per half.
But-
so it's basically a Palmer nuke is like 2 hives in one box that's split down the middle. So each of them produces like 30 pounds.
yeah, but it's a lot of management.
It is.
It's
It's knowing what the hell you're doing because
yes.
that immediately goes from like I forgot to manage it to I now have 6 swarms
Yes.
in my tree.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's going to wrap up our questions. Our last segment, droning on, where we talk about what we're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks. All of the things in the yard.
All of them.
And also talking about a deep dive on this viruses and vectors tied to honeybee colony losses. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned.
Yeah, jump to our next. We'll split this out. This will be our normal one. This will just be a bonus. We'll have a bonus
Episode.
So it'll be totally different.
And this would be the perfect thing to put on our Patreon if we had it.
Yeah, we have a Patreon. We're not charging for this one yet because it's not set up yet.
Perfect. And we have nobody who would sign up to listen to
That's
it.
true, and we would get no listens.
But if you would like to sign up,
Yeah.
this would be the kind of things that you would be getting as extras.
We are discussing things that we could offer to entice people to support us for Patreon. So if you have ideas as well,
And if you have, we'll throw a couple out there. And if you have any if you have any suggestions on if this was something that you would like to support us monetarily with and get it in return, so like if you were a member for a certain reoccurring number of months, you would get a honey bear / pound sent to you.
Yep, from one or both of our apiaries.
Yep. And for a year of signing up, we would do like year end honey baskets and various things.
Honey straws,
Yep.
candles,
Candles, the
lip
things that,
balms,
Yep.
hand lotions
Yep.
that we make.
Yep.
All that stuff. We're talking about having like a Twitch stream so you can live ask us questions. Maybe potentially go out into the apiary with cameras.
do it live from the apiary.
Do a live apiary talk.
So much technical.
Yeah, so much technical, but pretty cool.
It would be cool.
So we're still. It's not out of our discussion yet. We're still looking at stuff. So, and if you have neat ideas,
yeah, and we're season 2. We're starting to get some more traction here. We're looking at some more guests. I talked to. I reached out. I was looking at all of the footnotes of all of the other papers that were cited in this most recent research paper, and I found a couple of other interesting papers, and I couldn't get a PDF of one of them, so I reached out to one of the researchers and was like, "Hey, I have a bee podcast. I'm interested in reading your paper. Would you send it to me?" And they almost immediately wrote me back.
and she's an alumni from my college. So
I know.
I can.
Relatively local, so I have a copy of that. I think we're going to talk about that in the future. Might have her on as a guest to ask questions and talk about some economics of beekeeping. So if you're interested in that, let us know.
I have Bob Binney's number, so I'm planning on. For those of you who know Bob Binney, he's a big YouTuber. Has said
Dirt Roosters has said he'll be on.
he actually listens, right? So
I know.
So there you go, Randy. We are.
We're gonna get you on it eventually. Maybe that'll be our first Patreon
episode. Nah, we'll just
everybody wants to listen to the Dirt Rooster, right?
Yeah, we'll have to get. Maybe we'll get a beekeeping buddies shirt and have him sign it, and then we can put that out as a Or maybe we'll have him sign a couple.
Yeah.
Or maybe if he won't, we can send it.
I mean,
send it out.
There was a guy who was asking for your autograph the other day at the event. So
that's true.
Maybe they just want a signed T-shirt from one of.
Could be.
I mean,
maybe he's just looking for my signature.
I feel like
forge it for a check or something.
Yeah, much bigger audience has to grow before that's going to happen. Anyway, we thank you for listening to guys. It's been another great episode. Tune in again for all of your backyard beekeeping and questions to be answered here on the Beekeeping Buddies podcast. Thanks.